Someone put on Instagram, I believe, that Tim Dillon's video where he was saying that Michelle Obama should run for president. If she won, she could pull her cock out and China would just give up. I was wheezing. I couldn't breathe. Big mind.
Everything was going smoothly. Michelle Obama was cruising through interviews, dropping inspiration like confetti and effortlessly reminding the world why she's America's favorite former First Lady. Then, out of nowhere, Joe Rogan and Jesse Watters bulldoze a narrative like two bulls in a kale smoothie shop. Rogan came in hot with unfiltered honesty, while Watters unleashed sarcasm like it was government policy. Suddenly, Michelle's glow turned into a full-blown PR crisis, where they expose Team Obama's scrambling and this takedown, totally unscheduled, is already going viral.
So, President dies, everyone in the world shows up, and she doesn't break her vacation? It's not like she doesn't have access to a jet. Something is going on. Let's speculate.
Yes, please.
It's either surgery.
Oh.
That was my least controversial thing.
Depends what kind of surgery.
She will not sit close to the dictator. And by that, I don't mean Hillary, I mean Donald Trump. Or there's trouble in paradise between Barack and Michelle. I've heard things. I'm not going to substantiate that by repeating these rumors on national TV like I just did. But I'm just saying it's very odd that she's not.
With a straight face, she told us her parents never aspired to be wealthy, that they only took what they needed. Apparently, need now includes in $11.75 million Martha's Vineyard mansion, private chefs, six-figure speaking gigs, a Netflix production deal, and a book contract so massive it could make the national deficit blush. But sure, go on. Tell us more about your humble beginnings while sipping from a golden goblet beneath a crystal chandelier. We're all ears.
But Michelle wants you to remember it wasn't the Obama-Biden White House. It was the Barack and Michelle White House. Listen to how she uses the words we.
I'm so proud of my husband and the way he led, the way his administration worked, the team that we built. So proud of everyone. I think that's because of who we are.
Did she just forget to mention Joe Biden? Michelle, as your husband said, you didn't build that. But if I were Joe Biden, I don't know who I'd fear more, Trump or her.
Joe Rogan heard that and nearly had an aneurysm. He sat there, visibly struggling to process how someone could claim modesty while being one of the wealthiest former first ladies in U.S. history. Rogan, who's seen it all, from UFOs to elk meat to psychedelics, was still baffled that someone who's earned more than most rappers is somehow still celebrated for being relatable to everyday Americans.
Michelle Obama's speech on day 2 of the DNC was a masterclass in irony.
She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
The Obamas have a combined net worth of $70 million, and they own a bunch of properties.
And speaking of the common people, Jesse Watters wasn't by it either. He took one look at Michelle's podcast, the one nobody listens to unless they're contractually obligated, and said it sounded less like a genuine conversation and more like a therapy session with a branding budget. Empowering was a marketing label. Publicly unpacking unresolved beef with Barack was a real product. Watters practically begged someone to end the madness before Spotify had to refund itself.
Joe Rogan is calling out Oprah and Michelle Obama for hypocritical speeches at the DNC Watch.
She's up there talking about income inequality. Like, hey, lady.
Yeah, I know.
You're rich as Like, how is that equal? And also, when Michelle Obama was saying, I think she was saying her mother or grandmother was always suspicious of people who took more than they needed.
Yes.
Like, you are worth so much money.
Take more than they need. The Obamas have 4 mansions.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, a quick tour through Michelle Obama's resume of contradictions. Start with the idea that she's some apolitical, above-the-frame moral compass for the nation. That's rich. Considering every time a Democrat hits turbulence, Michelle's already on stage in heels before CNN can finish saying, "We need a savior."
Primetime's been wondering where Michelle Obama's been. She snubbed both Jimmy Carter's funeral and Trump's inauguration. And last week, Barack went to a basketball game all by himself. Turns out Michelle's been busy working on a new podcast, and so far, it's been a flop. The first 2 episodes have been up all day and only gotten a few thousand views on YouTube. Half of them are probably primetime producers. But still, Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves.
And then there's a Michelle Obama podcast, a riveting deep dive into what happens when someone who has everything complains about the emotional burden of being admired. Marketed as a spiritual journey, it turned out to be 45 minutes of elite name-dropping, recycled therapy buzzwords, and just enough vague activism to keep the New York Times clapping like trained seals. The real twist? It had lower ratings than late-night infomercials about air fryers. Jesse Watters torched it on Fox News, calling it a masterclass in pettiness and the most expensive diary entry ever. And he wasn't wrong. Michelle didn't hold back. She aired out frustrations with Barack, her kids, even her own mother. Most people go to therapy for this kind of emotional unpacking. Michelle hit record and tried to monetize it. And the contradictions didn't stop there. This is the same Michelle Obama who once warned us about the dangers of toxic masculinity, then hit the road weeks later on a glitzy tour introduced by a DJ, flanked by stadium lights that would make Beyoncé blush, and charged $600 seat to preach humility. As Watters put it, if irony were a stock, Michelle would own the entire market.
Joan Rivers said that Michelle Obama was a man before she died. When
was that a joke? I thought it was a joke.
I thought it was a joke too, but the way she said it wasn't like jokey. She was like, oh, come on, everybody knows Michelle Obama's the man. Like, remember that?
Yeah, like, would Big Mike kill you for that?
Well, then came the Netflix specials, most notably Becoming, a documentary centered around the woman who, by her own account, was reluctant to re-enter public life, and yet her reluctant return included full camera crews, wardrobe changes, makeup teams, and a multi-million-dollar streaming deal. But remember, she's just like us. You know, if us includes the ability to turn a book signing into a sold-out arena tour, complete with pyrotechnics and confetti cannons. Joe Rogan wasn't having it. The man can tolerate government overreach, sketchy pharmaceuticals, and aliens doing cartwheels on surveillance footage. But Michelle's performative modesty? That was too much. He sat on his podcast, visibly baffled, pointing out the absurdity of a woman worth tens of millions telling average Americans that wealth isn't everything. It's like a lion telling gazelles that meat's overrated. Then came Rogan's own Netflix special, where he decided to take the gloves off. In a moment that sparked 10,000 outraged tweets, he cracked a joke so controversial it practically broke the internet, and quite possibly Michelle's PR team. Was it crude? Yes. Was it unfair? Maybe. But was it a dead-on reflection of how far her carefully curated image had drifted from reality? Without a doubt, that moment captured the growing disconnect. The more Michelle framed herself as a humble saint, the more the public noticed her halo was gold-plated. And let's not forget her relentless moralizing. Michelle doesn't just speak. She sermonizes. She doesn't suggest, she declares. Every speech feels aimed at a room full of unruly schoolkids, except her audience is made up of adults just trying to make rent. Still, she floats words like empathy, equity, and community like she just invented them in a think tank made of lavender and empathy juice.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was for me.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom.
Michelle says her husband doesn't really like people, doesn't know how to talk to him, and doesn't even really care.
Jesse Watters didn't mince words when he pointed out the awkward truth. Michelle Obama isn't a spiritual leader. She's a luxury brand in disguise. A multi-million-dollar enterprise in stilettos, delivering TED Talk-style lectures about struggle while lounging on custom furniture imported from Europe. Her idea of hardship? A delayed flight on a private jet. And have you noticed she only resurfaces politically when the Democrats are in full-blown panic mode? It's like a Marvel movie, when the campaign hits rock bottom. Cue Michelle in slow motion, walking on stage with gospel music swelling in the background. You half expect her to hold up a glowing orb and announce the Avengers are assembling. When they go low, we go high, she once said. Now, it feels more like, when they go low, we sell another book. Even her dietary crusades weren't safe from mockery. Remember the school lunch reforms? Kids were trading broccoli for Cheetos like Wall Street commodities. Rogan once joked that Michelle's food policy turned school cafeterias into black markets. Apple slices sparked mini riots. Some students were literally scrawling protest letters in ketchup on napkins. And speaking of student trauma, there's her public school advocacy, delivered, of course, from the sidelines of her daughter's elite private academy. It's like preaching the virtues of biking to work while being chauffeured in a Tesla. Nothing wrong with private school, sure, but maybe skip the lectures about supporting public education while your security team blocks traffic for drop-off. The disconnect isn't just glaring, it's the whole spectacle.
Got it.
You know Michelle is a
I'm sorry, she's a what?
a transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty funny how she said it.
Okay, we all know.
Then came Michelle Obama's latest TV appearance, billed as a raw, vulnerable moment. Translation: another carefully staged scene where Michelle says something vaguely emotional. The camera zooms in, and the audience is subtly cued to weep. She could mutter, "Sometimes I'm just tired of being admired," and Twitter would immediately erupt with, "She's so brave." Meanwhile, people juggling 2 jobs just to afford gas are left wondering how much bravery it really takes to feel exhausted in a $$6,000 designer dress. Joe Rogan called it spiritual cosplay. Michelle playing the role of the humble icon while production team scripts the humility behind the scenes. She's not just a person, she's a brand, an inspirational juggernaut wrapped in curated authenticity and carefully managed empathy. Rogan said the only thing more artificial than her modesty was the AI-generated laughter on her podcast. Listening to it, he quipped, felt like being waterboarded with wellness quotes. And Jesse Watters wasn't done. He accused her team of quietly crafting her as the Democrats' plan B, waiting in the wings for when the Biden bus finally breaks down, ready to parachute in like a political Beyoncé. Except, as Watters dryly noted, even Beyoncé's latest albums get more listeners than Michelle's podcast, and that's without Spotify's algorithmic life support. Then there's the ambition. For someone who swears, pinky promise, she's not running for office, Michelle sure does a convincing impression of someone who is. She's always reluctantly touring, hesitantly promoting, and modestly accepting checks with so many zeros they need their own zip code. She keeps saying, "I'm not running." Yet somehow, every major Democratic donor has her on speed dial.
Michelle has a Netflix special with Oprah, and when Oprah taps you, that means it's your time. The Obamas know that. It was Oprah who was the first big name to support Barry's run for the White House. So what does this mean? Well, for one, it means Michelle has another book, and she wants the world to know it's her world now, that she, not Barack, is the real star.
This isn't just posturing. It's political gaslighting at its finest. Michelle Obama might not be running for office, but she's certainly jogging laps around the campaign trail, flanked by a camera crew and armed with a quote book. Jesse Watters skewered performance, comparing it to a Thanksgiving turkey, roasted and overdone. He pointed out that Michelle has perfected the art of being just popular enough to make people beg her to save them, all while never actually committing to doing anything. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable truth of all. Michelle Obama isn't the humble, soft-spoken, reluctant star the media sells. She's the architect of a carefully curated myth that plays perfectly with latte liberals and suburban book clubs. As Joe Rogan put it, she's a Louis Vuitton bag of politics, expensive, high status, and mostly empty inside. And here's the wild part. Despite the hypocrisy, the moralizing, the strategic victimhood, Michelle Obama is still treated like political royalty. Every magazine cover, every guest appearance, every perfectly timed emotional soundbite is treated like gospel. Meanwhile, average Americans are scraping by through inflation, and Michelle is out here writing poems about feelings next to $$3,000 designer lamps. In the fantasy crafted by her PR machine, Michelle is the every woman. But in reality, she's a celebrity cosplaying as a philosopher, a millionaire masquerading as relatable, and a political figure expertly moonwalking around accountability. Rogan and Watters didn't just critique her, they ripped the mask clean off. And the only thing more staged than the persona is the applause that keeps following it.
And right now, Michelle is having her Hillary moment. Barry had his 8 years, so Michelle's demanding her time to shine. Michelle's on a roll, and now she's center stage.
The woman who needs no introduction for real, Michelle Obama!
At some point, the Michelle Obama myth starts to feel less like a legacy and more like a lifestyle brand, one that sells guilt with a smile. The nonstop image of her as just a mom is hard to square with her role as the face of global summits, luxury interviews, and choreographed vulnerability. It's like Gwyneth Paltrow with a voter registration drive. Behind every speech about being real is a teleprompter, a stylist, and a $$20,000 speaking fee. Joe Rogan saw through the facade instantly. He wasn't reacting to Michelle as a person. He was responding to a system designed to elevate a carefully curated persona into sainthood. And Jesse Watters brought the receipts. Every calculated move was dissected, not because Michelle is a woman or black or a former first lady, but because the performance had started to drown out the substance. There's nothing wrong with wealth, fame, or popularity, but it gets hard to swallow when the lectures on struggle come from someone who hasn't flown commercial since flip phones were in style.
Normally, when someone rags on their spouse, there's usually a little love. Like, you know Jimmy, he never listens, but he looks cute in his suit. But that wasn't cute. Did she drop this podcast to distance herself from Barack so she could run for president? Every politician starts a podcast right before they launch their next campaign. Looking at you guys.
When privilege is packaged as oppression for public consumption, the satire practically writes itself. Michelle Obama is no longer a symbol of hope or change. She's the end result of sincerity smothered by designer humility and algorithm-approved messaging. She's not relatable. She's aspirational cosplay, carefully delivered by handlers and sold in hardcover. Now the illusion is cracking. Whether it's Rogan's raw honesty or Watters' smug precision, the curtain is being yanked back. And the real question isn't whether Michelle wants power. It's how long she's in rehearsal for the role while insisting she never wanted the part in the first place.